Donald, how can I increase my close rate? I feel like no matter what I'm doing, the prospect just seems to evade the close. Need some help. Well, today I'm going to give you some help and I'm going to give you some guidance when it comes to closing those deals more efficiently and faster. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Calais, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we're going to be talking today about this idea of increasing our close rate. Now, many of us as salespeople might say we're great at closing the deal. And some of us are. And the challenge that we find, though, is that you can always find improvement. And today I want to give you some ideas that can help you, even if it's 1% better. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, go ahead and subscribe, and I promise you we'll notify you every time we drop a new piece of content like this one. If you've been listening to the podcast for a minute, please go ahead and take this link, share it with one other team member that could benefit from it. So let's talk about closing the deal. First thing I want to emphasize is that you need to close the deal, and you need to ask for the business. Now, I'm going to give you some ways of how you can go about doing this. The problem that I find often with salespeople that I coach is that they're intimidated with by the prospect at the end, or they're intimidated. They've done so much work over this course of the last 3 months and working with this prospect, getting them to this finish line, that they don't want to lose it and don't want to mess it up. So they do all they can to prevent that from happening. And in actuality, what actually does happen is they mess it up because you elongate it. And that's the first thing I would say is the fear of rejection. What if they say no? Well, I mean, at this point, we've done so much. What's the worst that can happen, right? And if you've done so long and worked with them for so long, the more than likely chance is that they're not going to want to go start over with somebody else. They probably want to continue to work with you, especially if you're the vendor that they're selecting or favoring. So I want to give you some ideas. The first thing, several things I want to talk about. The first one is just waiting too long, and that ties back to this. Well, the first one is that fear of rejection. I feel you don't want to offend the prospect, or you don't want to lose the deal, so you just don't do anything. The second piece that ties back to that, number 2, is that they wait too long. Because of this issue, I don't want to offend you. I don't want to cause a problem. We wait too long and elongate the deal. And what this might look like is the seller doesn't feel confident that the buyer is going to use the solution or purchase from them. So they just keep babying the situation until it becomes an issue where it's not necessarily going to progress anymore. So let me give you an example. Because the seller is not confident, they might say something to the nature of, let me know what you think. When in actuality, the seller should say, Donald, based on everything that we've discussed so far, does it make sense for us to move forward with the agreement today? Or does it make forward? You can change it to your vernacular. Does it make sense for us to move forward with the agreement at this point? And they'll tell you, like, you can always do that as a temperature test, but more than likely they'll tell you. If you've done a good job in a discovery, it's going to be natural at that point. The other issue that I find is that salespeople ask some weak questions when it comes to this. They should be direct at this point. I mean, we've done so much work, but they come forward with something like, let me know what you think is the one that they go forward with, or maybe we could start something. Like, maybe no, we are going to start something, or go ahead and review it and let me know what you think at that point. Like, none of those things are going to give the prospect this confidence to go forward with you. You got to come forward with something strong like, would you prefer to start implementation next Monday or next Tuesday? Now, the reason why I would go with an approach like that is if I've done all this stuff already and led up to that point, and the buyer knows the path and we're following their journey, and they also know what we've outlined and worked together on, I'm just going to ask, would you prefer to start implementation this Monday, or do you want to start it next, you want to start on Friday, or you want to start it next Monday or Tuesday? Whatever your dates are. The point there is that it's very direct and simple. Next piece I want to emphasize upon is that sometimes when the close doesn't work properly, the seller is trying to get a sale when the buyer doesn't feel confident that there is a solution. So let me give you an example. In my mind as a seller, I'm feeling, well, we explained so much about our wonderful solution. We did an amazing demo, but the demo did not hit on the points that I liked. In your process, after the demo, then comes the proposal, and then you might get a closed deal. But dude, I am way back at step number 2, and you're over at step number 4. Disconnect. The disconnect there is that you did not, like I talked about in the last episode, you did not paint a picture of the solution to the problem that I have, the real problem. You talked about your offering, but does it really solve my particular pain? It more than likely does. but I don't see it. But you're trying to ask for the sale at that point, and there's a disconnect. So you got to make sure you don't try to give the solution or ask for the sale when the buyer doesn't agree on a solution. So what I would say is, based on what we've discussed so far, Jerem, does this do you feel that this could solve your problem, solve your blank problem? And I can explain that problem, because now I need to make sure I'm fully on the same page. So Jerem, based on everything that you've seen, what I share, do you feel that this could solve the pipeline problem with your individual sales rep? And he might say, well, Donald, clearly it does. And I love this. Or, no, I'm not quite sure yet, Donald. Let's figure out what that is. And I can get an understanding. I could leave that meeting and I can feel that, yeah, he's good. And then I create a proposal and I send a proposal over to him, but nothing happens because I didn't confirm that that he sees that this solved the problem for him. Am I making sense on that? You got to give me something. Let me know on LinkedIn. Just say, Donald, you're making sense. Drop me a tweet. Is it called a tweet anymore? Whatever. And I think that piece is just often overlooked when it comes to salespeople. The other one that I find is talking too much after the buyer says yes. So let's go back to the point up above where we say, does it make sense to implement this day or that day? The sales rep might say something silly like, okay, well, if not, what we can do, we can also go ahead and we can look at the pricing, or we can look at some other option. Like, dude, shut up at this point and just take the money. And not literally, but you know what I'm saying, right? If the buyer says, yeah, let's go forward with implementation, don't need to add anything else. Go and move forward. Go get to the next thing. Get the agreement set up so they can go ahead and sign, and make sure if legal, who needs to be involved, if it needs to go to legal or whatnot. But dude, at this point, man, you got it. Don't try to muck up the water with all other mess. One of the other things that I find is, and I did door-to-door security sales, and in that case, you are going to have some, you got 45 minutes. Maybe on doorstep, you got like maybe 30 seconds when somebody answers the door to grab their attention, to get them intrigued, and then from there to continue the conversation. But altogether, this exercise is 45 minutes, and 45 minutes later, you're going to have a technician come in putting holes in your wall. Like, it's that fast of a sales process, right? And there's a little bit of pressure in there, but I'm not talking about high pressure. Like, you sign right now. So that high pressure just makes it becomes this event. And that's what you don't want. I talk about this in our sales training course, and I found this early on in my career. Like, I used to make the closing the sale, an event. And when you make it an event, it becomes it becomes not a natural thing to do, because it's a big deal right now, and I don't want to make a big mistake. But if it's a natural course because the problem is solved, it's going to be easy. Here's an example. So Jenna, we've confirmed that implementing this solution can help your team specifically reduce the amount of time they're spending doing Y by more than 20%. Now, you're going to have to figure out something to do with all that time. Now, if you're comfortable with that result, the next step is for us to get an agreement over to you so you can review, as well as to get legal to look at it. Who should we include on the legal side of this? Now, with all of that being said, I just naturally went with this, and it's not a high pressure. Like, hey, you got to sign this, you got to close. Or if you do this, I'm going to win a TV. Like, none of that garbage. You're just having a natural conversation with the prospect, and that helps tremendously. Now, when it's all said and done, you got to understand, if you do a great job in a discovery call, if you did fantastic with painting that picture, more than likely, it's going to be easy for the prospect to follow the next step. In my view, every time I come to like the close of a deal, I find that it flows naturally if I've done that. If I can help paint that picture and help them to understand the problem so well, and that we have a clear solution and we have a mutual action plan that we go through, like, the next step just becomes so natural. And that's what I've seen oftentimes that help my deal to close. I would love to hear from you if these things make sense. You can make your deals close faster, more effectively, if you follow some of these procedures, but especially the mutual action plan. Give the buyer an understanding of what needs to happen, and you'll see how it becomes more of a project management after you've identified the real problem and then you've identified a clear solution, and everyone feel confident about that. If you can have those two elements in sales, magic. Listen, I want you to thrive and I want you to succeed. If you like this, go ahead and let me know on LinkedIn. You can connect with me. We also have a mastermind where salespeople come together and we tackle challenges like this that you're facing. You can find details by going to thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. Again, thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. It's a paid community. Would love to have you join. Find more details at thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. But most importantly, I want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to go out and do big things. See you on the next one.